What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. In this video, it's February 17th. We're going to go over my 2023 Dynasty Rookie Rankings. I'm going to open up a screen share here and show you guys what we're looking at. I did put a couple links in the description. They'll get you to thefantasyfellowship.com. One of the links here is my 2023 rookie rankings, and these are more like NFL draft like rankings where you kind of scroll down here, and these are the top 48 players and it's filtered by projection. So you're going to kind of see it that way. But you can go ahead and keep scrolling down. You can find the quarterbacks. These guys are ranked here. You got running backs ranked, as well as wide receivers and tight ends. And all of these rankings are pretty much taken from Mock Draft Database, where I'm basically just ranking where these guys are kind of projected right now. These are not my actual dynasty rankings. We're going to look at that next, but this is a good resource here to kind of just see who the names are, where they're projected, and kind of what's going on here to kind of get the lay of the land. But let's go ahead and click into my dynasty rankings. And I do have quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, tight ends ranked, like all these guys, the veterans that are already in the league playing. But let's click on the rookie tab and we'll get into it. And I kind of filtered this. I guess we're going to do it in chunks of 12 because 12 teams in a dynasty league, that's essentially the first round of players here. So for me, my first overall pick, and it almost doesn't even matter if it's super flex or not. I think it's got to be Bijan Robinson from Texas, one of the best running backs prospects that we've seen since maybe Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, names like that. He's currently projected 15th, which is, kind of middle of the first round there. So I do like his potential. Let me look at, let's look at the full draft order here. I'm going to go to, we'll go to full order here, and kind of in that range, you're seeing, New England, they have running backs, Green Bay, Washington, but Pittsburgh, Detroit, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is one of the popular players that I've seen Bijan Robinson too. So not really a good spot for him in the middle there, but we'll see. He's currently a mid-first round pick, Bijan Robinson. Again, one of the locks for one of the best running backs coming into the draft. And then after that, I do have Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama coming in next. And what I like about him is his potential landing spot. He's a really fun player. He can do everything really well, really fast, really smooth, elusive. He's going at the end of the first round. And if you're looking at the teams in the back end of the first round, I just want to click here a little bit better here. So if you're looking at the back end of the first round, I mean, we're talking, there's Jacksonville. They don't really need a running back. The Giants don't really need a running back. The Cowboys, maybe Buffalo, maybe Cincinnati looking to replace Joe Mixon. There's the Saints. Maybe they're looking to upgrade Alvin Kamara with his legal troubles. Philadelphia, Kansas City. So the potential for Jahmyr Gibbs to get on a really fun team is exciting. His landing spot could, move him up or down in my rankings, but I think there's a clear top two running backs in this draft, both guys being first round picks. You kind of want to acquire first round running backs for your dynasty roster. So I have those two guys there. And then coming in next, I have Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's on the cover of the thumbnail. I have him as my first wide receiver off my board. Now, I like him a lot. You have Ohio State's been a wide receiver factory the last 4 or 5 years, going all the way back to Michael Thomas and maybe even further back. But Smith-Njigba, he can do everything really, really well. And I retweeted something here that I thought was really cool. And it kind of just shows his value as a wide receiver. This is a pretty good tweet here that I liked. It's the percentage of receiving yards by route. And you see Smith-Njigba can do everything. He's not limited to just go routes like Jalen Hyatt is. Quentin Johnson even kind of has a more limited route tree, but I like Smith-Njigba a lot. He's going to come in and fit with any offense, and he's kind of got like a Keenan Allen-ness to his game. Super fun player. I like Jordan Addison too. These guys are both very, very versatile wide receivers. So I have Smith-Njigba as my first wide receiver off the board. He's got a projection of about 19th overall. That's going to put him right in that wheelhouse of maybe Detroit, Tampa Bay, probably not, maybe Seattle, maybe the Chargers. I think that would be a really sexy pick. If the Chargers end up taking a wide receiver in the first round, we're going to love whoever they take. And who knows, if Smith-Njigba goes even higher, you're talking Tennessee, Houston, probably not the Jets, maybe New England, maybe even Green Bay. So there's some really fun landing spots for these receivers here. And then I do have Quentin Johnson, my number 4 player here. He's got a projection of about 13th overall. Fun receiver, but again, he's kind of more limited in his route tree. He does have a good variance here towards the end of this chart. But a good percentage of go routes, a good percentage of crossing routes, and a good percentage of post routes. So he's more of like a vertical kind of threat there. Next, I would have Jordan Addison. So in the top 5, I have 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers. Addison's really fun. He's a little bit on the smaller side, but we've seen guys like Devonta Smith kind of debunk that narrative of late here. And again, you look at his route trees, dude can do everything. Really fun player. You're going to find ways to get him the ball in space and see what he can do. And that's kind of right on par with what the NFL is doing. If you consider, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith types, these smaller, faster receivers are having a lot of success in the NFL and right away. So I like all three of these guys. I did put a little tier break in there to get to Jalen Hyatt just because he's more, I don't want to say one trick pony, but he's got a little bit more work to do to round out his complete NFL game. But there you go. That's the top five. And then I have the quarterbacks. So obviously, if you're playing in super flex leagues, these guys are going to be bumped, maybe towards second, third, fourth overall in those kind of areas. But Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, I'm still not sure which one I like more than the other. I think Bryce Young's a lot of fun. I think CJ Stroud, more prototypical pocket passer type ability there. Really depends on their landing spot. If I like one more than the other, we'll have that conversation later down the road. But either way, both guys fringe top five picks in the standard league there, but Superflex, both top five picks. And then you see I do have Jalen Hyatt here, the Tennessee wide receiver. Super fun vertical threat. Watching Jalen Hyatt, he does kind of remind me a little bit of Christian Watson and what he can do. You can see here over 50% of his yards came from go routes. He does have a good sprinkling of all the other routes here, but he's primarily a deep threat that can stretch the field for you. And he's got a fun projection of 27th overall, basically putting him in the wheelhouse of a New York Giants, maybe a Dallas Cowboy, maybe a Buffalo Bill. Like those are really fun landing spots for Jalen Hyatt. Even Cincinnati, because Cincinnati, they're going to have to replace Tyler Boyd, and they don't really have a number 4 wide receiver at some point. So keep an eye on the back end of the first round here for a guy Jalen Hyatt. Even New Orleans can make sense. Philadelphia could make sense, and of course Kansas City could just really, put a little bit of rocket fuel to his ADP for fantasy. But after Hyatt, I do have another wide receiver, Zay Flowers from Boston College. Fun receiver. I do like what he has to offer. I kind of view him as a late first round pick here, kind of a guy that can do everything, but he's not like necessarily in the top 4 or 5 receiver discussion. So he has been moving up boards lately, though. So there's potential for him to get in the first round. Kind of reminds me of a Curtis Samuel. If Curtis Samuel was able to put a complete season together and just be like an alpha. So I like Zay Flowers, a little bit smaller like Curtis Samuel, but he can do everything really well. And then I ended my first round here with 3 straight running backs because I really like the running back depth in this draft. Now, the receivers at the top of the draft, I did put 5 receivers in the first round. The receivers are kind of top heavy because after the top 5 or 6 or so, they all kind of start to look the same. I don't really know if there's a lot of, wide receiver ones in this draft. But the running backs, I think there are potential for 5 or 6 running back ones. And based on landing spot, David A-Chain, Zach Charbonnet, and Zach Evans, all these guys have a lot of potential. And they're all kind of, like late second round or maybe early third round picks. And we love to acquire running backs that are taken in the first 3 rounds. So for me, I kind of just group them all together. That's kind of like its own tier. And my tier actually continues. If you look here into the 13th, 14th, and 15th picks, I do have more running backs. Sean Tucker from Syracuse, Tajay Spears, who's flying up draft boards after his really good senior bowl, and then Kenny McIntosh from Georgia. These guys are all kind of late 3rd round, early 4th round picks. And again, based on landing spot, these guys could go up and down for me. So I kind of just grouped all my running backs really highly up there. They're all going to be fringe first round, early second round picks. So that's kind of where we're looking at there. So 8 running backs in my top 15. Here's Josh Downs, a really fun wide receiver from UNC. I view him as like a really solid Robert Woods type receiver. I don't know if he's ever going to be an alpha, but he does have the potential to be like a really quality number 2 wide receiver for a team. And he was higher. Like if you looked at the rankings maybe 2-3 weeks ago, he was a little bit higher. He was kind of like a fringe first rounder. He's starting to slide a little bit into the mid second round, but nonetheless, if he lands in the right spot, he could be a really nice complementary wide receiver to a number 1. Next, I have the quarterbacks, Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. Both guys have a lot of questions. It really depends on their landing spot here, but I think Will Levis, we all know his arm talent. Anthony Richardson, we know he's got the leg talent. So we'll see where those guys land. But in the standard league, they're both going to probably be second round picks. And in superflex leagues, they're probably, back end of the first round. Here I have the first tight end off the board, Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. Tight ends are really hard to hit correctly. I think if you really needed a tight end, I'm willing to take him up here at the beginning of the second round. So it's really based on your team needs and if you need one or if you really like Notre Dame or whatever you got to do. but he is kind of the clear #1 tight end. But I will say you could get some value here from Dalton Kincaid and Darnell Washington a little bit later. These guys are starting to close the gap on draft projection. Like if you looked 3 weeks ago, these guys were projected around 50th picks overall. They're both starting to creep into the beginning of the second round. So really fun options here for tight end. And then I have another group of wide receivers here. My wide receiver 7, 8, and 9, Keyshawn Butte for LSU, Rashee Rice from SMU, and Cedric Tillman from Tennessee. These guys, Butte and Rice, are kind of middle to late second round picks, and Tillman looks like a solid third round wide receiver. So again, I don't know if any of these guys are alphas, but they will be complementary #2 wide receiver pieces for wherever they get drafted. So keep an eye on these guys. And that's my top 24. As we get further into, I guess this is the third round of fantasy drafts, you're starting to see a lot more wide receivers. And again, these guys are just more bench pieces that I think can be quality #3 wide receivers, or if they get drafted to the right situation, they can be quality #2s. That's Nathaniel Dell from Houston, Marvin Mims out of Oklahoma, Parker Washington, Penn State, Xavier Hutchinson, Iowa State. So these guys are all being drafted right now to be late third round picks, maybe early fourth round picks. We'll see where they end up. And then we go on another little running back run here. Tank Bigsby from Auburn, Deuce Vaughn, Kansas State, Kendre Miller from TCU. Again, kind of fourth round running backs. Again, like we've seen it before. It seems like every year there's like a day 3 running back that just kind of just surprises us. Last year it was Dameon Pierce. There's probably others that I can't mention off the top of my head, but every year, based on landing spot, there's going to be a running back that breaks out. Round 3 might be a good idea to snag one of these guys. You have more tight ends. Luke Musgrave from Oregon State, Tucker Kraft from South Dakota State. I keep seeing these guys creep up in their draft projection. And then some project quarterbacks here, Tanner McKee from Stanford, Hendon Hooker from Tennessee. These guys probably aren't going to be drafted to be starters anywhere year 1, but who knows? If they get paired with the right veteran QB, you could potentially have something in maybe 2 or 3 years with these guys. They both are roughly projected in the third round here, so we'll see where they land. And then I go on another little receiver run here, Dontavian Wicks from Virginia, Tyler Scott's moving up draft boards really quickly. These guys are both fourth round wide receivers. Landing spot could make or break their fantasy draft ADP. And then we just go on a running back binge here to end my top 42. Essentially, Eric Gray, Dwayne McBride, Chase Brown, Rashawn Johnson. It's going to be all landing spot dependent, but I feel more comfortable just getting a bunch of running backs put into my rankings here, just to kind of get your names on them and start to watch some of these top 15 running backs. And then we have one more tight end, Sam Laporta. Iowa tight ends, man, they always seem to be really good pros in the NFL. So like we can go back all the way to like Dallas Goedert. There's just a ton of Iowa connections at the tight end position, so don't sleep on him. But that's it. I just wanted to make a quick video, guys, of my dynasty rankings. Again, it's the middle of February. I'll probably make another update in maybe 2 or 3 weeks and get you guys something in the beginning of March here. But that's where I stand. Check out the links in the description if you guys want to see some more stuff. And yeah, thank you for your time. Enjoy your weekend. And yeah, we'll see you guys in a future video. Peace.